long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night. Good Lord, deliver us. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Seekers of the Supernatural. I'm your moderator, Tony Spera, with hosts Ed and Lorraine Warren. Tonight's program will be an exciting one, and it will include ghosties and beasties and things that go bump in the night. Tonight we're going to be speaking about one of the most horrific cases that the Warrens have ever investigated, the Amityville Horror. Now, Ed, can you tell me how you and Lorraine got involved in the Amityville Horror?
Well, it was Marvin Scott from Channel 5 news team. He was the anchorman at the time, and he had been involved with a haunting that we had investigated in Bloomfield, New Jersey, and he was impressed by this. So he gave us a ring and he said, we'd like you to come down and see what's going on in Amityville, Long Island. Now, this was not the Amityville Horror case at that time, you understand. This was just another haunted house, and we didn't even realize that 6 people had been murdered in that house of the Fail family. So we said, sure, we'd come down there, and we did. And that was the beginning of an adventure which we'll never forget, a supernatural adventure. When we went into the house that day, we didn't realize that it was diabolically infested. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have to say that Amityville was a 10. I want to make it clear at the beginning of this program that Lorraine and I do not back up the movie or the book. It was much more horrific than either. You didn't have to take a literary license in a book or dramatic license in a movie. This case had everything. It had the monstrosities of the night which roamed that house, which infested it, which caused a young man to murder his whole family. Ronald DeFeo is now serving 6 consecutive life sentences at Dannemora Prison. But you know, Amityville Horror goes way back before the Lutz family, who moved in there and bought the house later, and were fled 28 days later. It goes back 6 months before the DeFeos were murdered. Mr. DeFeo went up to Montreal, Canada. He went to a shrine where many miracles had occurred. A lot of people don't know this. He went to that shrine and he brought back from there a priest, an exorcist, who said masses in the house. Why? If this was a hoax that was created by the Lutz family, why 6 months before this man was murdered and his family was an exorcist in that house? While the priest was saying a mass and performed the exorcism rituals, candles were blowing out, doors were opening and closing. There were footsteps all around the house. Ronald DeFeo, who was the murderer of his family, fled the house. He didn't stay there. He did not want to stay there while the priest was in that house. What caused him to leave? Obsession? Possession? Who can say? We do know that this young man did murder every member of his family in that house, shot them to death. On November 13th, 1974, at 3:15 in the morning. He had a high-powered rifle. Now, when you see the photographs later, and these are the only pictures ever taken inside the Amityville Horror House, because Lorraine and I and just a handful of other investigators actually went in there. I've heard people on TV say, I was in that house, I was in that house, I investigated. They never were. They don't have any evidence, they have no proof. We have the proof, and you'll see that proof tonight. They will see the only photographs ever taken in the house itself at the time of the investigation. And as the Lutzes left that home, completely furnished, they didn't take one thing with them. They left everything there and they went off to California. Because Father Pecoraro, who many people said did not exist, talked with Lorraine and I. He told us all the horrible things that happened to him. We sat with him, he was as close as I am to you, Tony, at dinner at Kathy Lutz's mother's home in Deer Park. He told me things that the public has never heard about. And tonight, we are going to endeavor to explain what really happened in that home.
Okay, Lorraine, I know you went in the house and you experienced things, but can we just go over how you first were called into the house? Like, who was the gentleman that, or people that called you in? Was it the Lutzes that called you in?
No, it was not, Tony. It was Marvin Scott who called us in. He told us there had been a tragedy in that home. He didn't go into detail regarding it. He told us that it was a prominent family. He also told us during that very first conversation that the family that were living there at the present time had fled and left all of their possessions behind. And their viewers were very interested in the history of that house and what exactly might be wrong with the home. That's how we first became involved. Now, I had to tell Marvin Scott at that time that there was no way that we could go in that home without an invitation and permission from the family, which came very readily. But realize, when we met with George Lutz, not Kathy, because Kathy and the children were not there. When we met with George, he wouldn't go anywhere near the house. He met us at a pizza parlor and
Really?
sat with us and talked because he was so frightened.
Well, I understand that George wasn't really he was a no-nonsense kind of a guy,
He was
right?
really a no-nonsense man.
George Lutz was an ex-Marine. He was a karate expert. He ran around with motorcycle gangs. We're not talking about any altar boy here. We're talking about a rough, tough guy who, after 28 days in that house, fled, left everything behind, took his wife and children, and went off to California.
See, he was the type of person to me that felt like he had to always be in control. He would go out on the landings. It was 3 stories high. The home is very beautiful. The interior of the home is very formal and it's very beautiful. And he would go out and he would take his fist and he would tell what was there, or command what was there to come out so he could fight it. Because as far as he was concerned, he was very skeptical regarding the fact that anything paranormal was going on. At the time that this first began, he found it difficult because of his background to even believe in a God, never mind believe that something of this nature was taking place. But I have to say this, the Amityville case affected our personal lives more than any case we ever worked on.
Really?
It was, yes.
How? What way?
Well, it was to find